Hello, Chris from Pi Performance. Welcome to our first PieCast. Over the coming weeks and months, you'll see stories about Pi Performance, what we're doing, tuning products, bits and pieces. But I'm excited to announce our first car of the month under our PieCast, which is this, frankly, I'm very biased towards these, stunning 3.2 SuperSport that's been kindly loaned to us by Paul Hayman. A really rare and unusual car. Numbers of these in the UK were only ever 75 in all body types, so Targa, Coupe and convertible. So we're privileged to have this on loan from Paul, and an exceptional car. The 3.2 was a very special car in its own right. The turbo was a very big reach when these were new in the 80s. But because the turbo was a powerful car, hence got the nickname as the Widowmaker, a lot of poster car as well for people. You found that people wanted the body shape of the turbo, but didn't want the power or the danger of this overboost coming in at a very late stage. So Porsche reacted to that and bought us the SuperSport. Now, the reason there were so few of these made, it was a £10,000 cost option in the 80s over the 3.2. The gap with that £10,000 was very close to the turbo. So in the UK, there was only actually factory 75 of these cars made that were officially UK right-hand drive cars. As you can see, a very nice colour, Guards red, suits the curves of the car, really attractive. This is a slightly modified car to Paul's taste, so you'll notice the car is actually sitting lower than a standard 3.2, which to me really suits the body lines of the car. Has got a different exhaust system on it. It has got red Euro spec lights on this one as well, which with the red I think really complements it. And then different shifter inside to give it a little bit more precise shifting on the gearbox, and a Porsche Classic Momo steering wheel. I've got a real love for the 3.2 for many reasons. My first Porsche, and this is what got me into this game, was a pastel beige 3.2, which I bought off the first owner in a box of bits and restored it to concourse. That's what got me into the Porsche world. I've been fortunate enough that I've grown up around Porsches with my dad, but also the reason these have got a real attachment is my dad had a black SuperSport, and he had that for many years. That actually still belongs to a friend of ours, but it has crossed the waters and now sits in Singapore with a friend of ours. Lovely car by modern standards. They're factory 231 brake horse. They're not a quick car compared to a Golf GTI today. However, that's what these cars are not about. It's about the overall experience in driving them. They're just the pure classic 911 shape, that pure air-cooled sound, that pure experience. And you don't have to be going a million miles an hour to enjoy it and get that real experience. But on that note, one of the things we'll be doing in a PieCast is talking about driving them. And I think that's an appropriate time for me to jump in it, give it a drive and give you some feedback while driving it and give you my experience of it. I think the smile on my face says it all. This is why we drive Porsches. And there is a bit of a saying that life's too short to drive a boring car. Well, isn't that true? I think it's first very important to mention that I wouldn't be able to do any of this work without great friends, great customers. And I'm so grateful for Paul just allowing us to have the car for the duration of the month for our PieCast, but also allow us to take it for a drive and experience and give you some of the feedback that I'm finding now. I am biased because I am a 3.2 man. My first car was a 3.2. I've had several. We've had SuperSports in the family, and I love the look of the impact bumper and the shape silhouette they give. Not everyone's car, but I just think they work. I'm also quite biased because I think the 3.2 is a real sweet spot of the engines. Electronic fuel injection over the 3 litre SC before it, which was mechanical, just makes drivability much better, much more enjoyable. You'll hear as well that this particular car has a slightly louder exhaust than factory, which complements the car lovely. Might make it a little bit louder for the recordings. This particular model is an 86 car, so it still has the 915 gearbox. Just a year before they brought the G50 gearbox in, which some say are a better gearbox. I think it's a matter of opinion. This particular car, we've upgraded all the bushing in the columns and fitted a uprated shifter, which actually is a massive improvement. Makes your shifting much cleaner, much faster, and actually does make the 915 gearbox a much nicer drive. So a very expensive but good modification. One thing worth mentioning, if any of you are looking for a 3.2 SuperSport, just be careful because, like I said earlier, there is only 75 UK official cars. Just make sure if you're buying one of these cars, it's the real thing. There have been people that have gone out and bought these and unfortunately been disappointed to find out they're not actually a factory car. What a great car. And what a privilege. What a privilege. The nice thing with the 3.2, the engine is very torquey. Compared by modern standards, they're 231 brake horse from factory. A Golf GTI's got more bhp than this today, but would it put the same smile on your face? Not at all. Not at all. I'm just on the road outside of the Pie Performance Workshop at the moment, which is a lovely A road. We have a lovely test route, and we will be taking every car that we drive on the PieCast on the same route, just so we've got an equal comparison for experience. We are starting the PieCast off, say, with one of my ultimate cars. I'm not saying it would be hard to beat because we have some exceptional Porsches that we'll be having coming up on the channel over the year, and it will be from 924s to this, to modern, to classic, to everything. What'd be interesting is if there's any car you'd like me to test, say so in the comments and we'll see if we can organise it and get something there. Right, we've taken the car for a drive, we've had a look around it. Now let's do a quick buying guide just so you know what to look for. I think the first thing worth mentioning is rust. You know, these cars are getting 40 plus years old now and they are going to have rust, but there are some points where you need to look for. So some areas, front wings, around the headlight bowls are known for rust. Good area to check. The A-posts and around the bottom of the window. Quite a vulnerable point on the 3.2. Rust area is worth checking. Quickly open the door. The B-post. Again, an area that rusts, so definitely worth checking. Linked to that behind here is what in the Porsche world is called a kidney bowl. It's a structural integral part of the body, very prone for trapping in dirt, grime, and consequently then rusting from the inside out. An expensive repair. So if you find a car that's lovely and needs kidney bowls, it's something you want to consider if it's the right car for you, because it's an expensive repair. They do rust behind the seat areas. They do trap water behind the lights and start to rust around here. So definitely worth checking. While we're at the back, engines of these are very robust. History is a good thing. Make sure they've been serviced regularly. They do leak oil. It is an air-cooled car. There's a saying in the world of air-cooled, if it's not leaking oil, then it needs fixing. Top end rebuilds, about 100,000 miles, are prone around that mileage. If not done, head studs can break. You'll hear that from a blowing through from one of the barrels. A rebuild on these is expensive, so you might bear that in mind. Like I said, they're getting old, so look at brakes, look at suspension. They're a very strong car if they're well maintained and looked after, but being a Porsche, they are expensive to maintain. So have suspension checked, have your brakes checked, make sure your Fuchs are original if it's got factory Fuchs, make sure it drives nice, and just generally look over history. Interiors in these are actually typical German. They wear very well. Check out switch operation, seat movements, everything's like that, window regulators and stuff. Generally for these, if they're tatty inside, they've had people working on them, they haven't been put back together properly. They're a great car to start your air-cooled life. It's your first experience into air-cooled ownership. The 3.2 engine is lovely because their electronic fuel injection does make it a little bit easier to drive, a little bit easier to live with. Worth noting on these models, there are two gearbox choices. The early cars up to around 86 are 915 gearboxes, which is the early gearbox. After that, they went to a G50 gearbox, which is hydraulically controlled for the clutch. Out of the two, the G50 gearbox is generally the nicer box for gear shifting. However, the 915 can be improved. This particular model car has got an uprated shifter in it, new bushing all the way through, a new universal joint, and that massively improves the box. And I'd say with that upgrade, which we can do for you, you would hardly notice the difference between the G50 and the 915 box. I think one of the important things that if you are looking to buy a 911 of any sort, make sure you get an independent inspection on it. We obviously do them in-house. We can go out and visit clients for you if you decide to buy one. Alternatively, if you're looking for the right car, you can contact us and we'd be happy to source you one. Coming up next on our PieCast, we're going to sit down and interview Paul, the owner. Why he bought this car, what excites him about it, his experience of ownership. So stay tuned to the PieCast and check out our videos, and let's see the interview with Paul and see what he has to say. Thanks very much. Hi and welcome to PieCast, where we talk about customers' cars and we have our car of the month on our channel. I'm pleased to welcome Paul Hayman here, who's kindly lent us his SuperSport for our first car on our PieCast, which is exciting. A car that's very close to my heart for two reasons. My first Porsche was a 3.2 impact bumper, but also my father had SuperSports when I was growing up, and a lot of nostalgia and part of the reason why I got into Porsches. So let me welcome Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi there.
Thank you for taking the time to come and stand in front of a video with me.
My pleasure.
But also, seriously, thank you very much for loaning us your car, because it is a real honour that you entrust us with your car. So we just want to have a catch up, talk to you about ownership and why you bought this. But
sure.
Before we get into this, let's understand your car history. So
I've had my car history, let me think. So I've always been into fast cars. Yeah. I've always had a lot of German cars, so M3s and all sorts of different BMWs when I was quite young, actually. I remember driving down the street and someone shouting out Dad's car, but it was actually my car. So it was in Colchester, so that was funny. I've had Range Rovers, trucks, all sorts of things. But
petrol head.
Yeah, real petrol head. But I got into Porsches one day when the Macan came out. So I went to go and buy a Macan for the wife.
Okay.
And when I was in there, I fell in love with a white Carrera S 991.1 and bought it. Picked it up 2 days later. Told the wife afterwards, obviously. And
I think that's a typical bloke thing, though, isn't it?
Oh, totally, yeah. So yeah, I walked in and said I've bought a new car, and she said, "Oh, that's nice. What have you bought?" And I said, "I bought a Porsche." She's like, "Oh." I said, "Well,
Okay.
it was good. The kids loved it. Really, really good. Fell in love with it." So
what was the car before the 991? Just out of
what
interest?
was it? I think before that I had an Audi A6, one of the twin turbo diesel.
Okay,
cars,
so very different then.
and I had a Z435 IS, which was really quick.
Quite an unusual car as well.
Yeah, really unusual and very, very fast. So that was a lot of fun. That was. So I had those two and got rid of those when I got the 911.
I take it as well, when you got your first 911, you were hooked on the Porsche brand as well.
Oh, totally. I remember when I left the showroom when I picked it up, and you've just got the little haunches of the front wings, and you're like, oh, it's different to any other car really that you've driven. It's just a lovely feeling.
Well, it's that iconic 911, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So first ownership, a 991.
Yeah.
You can see the evolution of Porsche in the 991 from the SuperSport.
Yeah.
But why 991 to SuperSport as well?
Well, they're just an iconic car, aren't they? So it's like the poster car of the 80s. I was born late 70s, so growing up as a kid, always had this sort of thing on my wall. And the films that were around, Charlie Sheen, No Man's Land, that film where he's running around nicking a lot of Porsches.
Great film. I remember that film.
Really good film.
Used to watch them when they were breaking the steering locks and plugging the extra switch underneath the dash.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Crikey, that's some time ago as well.
Yeah, but these are real classic. Just the look of this never gets old, does it? Which is really nice. So I fell in love with this with the big arch.
I think if we're honest about it as well, with Porsche Evolution, it's kind of still their inspiration.
Yeah,
today.
the DNA.
Exactly. And I know things have got bigger and the modern cars got safer and more technology. But actually, if you look very close, and even, dare I say it, if you look at a Panamera, okay, love or hate it, I love the Panamera, as I've had a couple. That shape still exists.
Yeah.
And I know some people look at a Panamera as the four-door car, and it's not really a true Porsche. And I've had a couple now, and they drive like a Porsche should do.
Yeah.
They're great cars. So, what's in the garage at the moment as well then?
So at home I've got a 74 Beetle.
Okay.
Which is quite cool. So that's a restoration project. That's now almost fully restored. Just need to sort the engine out on it. So I might be giving you a call about that at some point. Try and get that a little bit quicker because it's a bit slow. Got a 991.1 GTS, which I love.
Oh, that's your daily driver.
That's my daily driver. So I've always loved those. When I had the S originally, I'd look at if I saw a GTS with the single nut wheel and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the centre locks kind of makes the GTS, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd be in the petrol station and one of those would pull in. Envious. So it was always on my bucket list. So I've got one of those and love it, absolutely love it. And we've got a Cayman as well. So was it can't remember what model it is, quite a new Cayman.
718, that's a GTS as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a GTS as well.
Another nice car.
Yeah, and my son's got a Boxster, so we're all Porsche family, which is good.
Yeah, I understand that you've got one son that's...
Yeah,
it's got
Japanese.
a flat engine, but not quite in the right place.
They're pointing the wrong way, yeah.
Fantastic.
No, that's good.
So if you had your 991 GTS or the SuperSport, and you could only keep one, which one would it be?
So we've had this conversation at home with my other petrol heads, and I think my answer was that I would keep this one over the GTS.
Yeah.
Because, this is a really rare car. Yeah. It's a totally different car to drive. You jump in it, it's noisy, it's analog, you've got to be careful with your gear shifts.
Yeah.
You're in touch with the car, it's talking to you. Whereas you hop in the GTS, you can pop to the shops, not even think about it. Put it in silly mode if you want to go silly. But if you just want to cruise around, you can cruise around.
Yeah.
But, these are super rare, and it's just, I think this would be the one I'd keep. So.
Yeah, and just touching on what you said about super rare, it actually mentions in one of the videos when I talk about the car. This is one of 75 UK cars.
Yeah.
And
And 34 coupes.
You know, you actually have to consider that for what that means.
Yeah.
Because, okay, Porsche's a bigger manufacturer today than it was back in the day when these were built. But I think it's worth mentioning as well, the reason there's so few of these, the cost option for this when it was new over a standard 3.2 was £10,000 in the 80s.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's almost the same price as the turbo.
Exactly. At that price point, you weren't very far off the turbo, hence why more turbos were sold.
Yeah.
And obviously with what I do, I drive a lot of cars, both 930 turbos, the SuperSports when they come in. And they're both very different cars as well.
Yeah.
And I get asked the question quite a lot, which one, certainly out of these models, would I choose? And okay, I'm an impact bumper guy. My first 911 was one of these, or an impact bumper car. So I've got a real attachment to them. But if I had to pick, the SuperSport wins hands down every time. It's just, I like the naturally aspirated engine, the way it drives. I think also as well with these, and this is where it's probably be my choice over your GTS as well, at 70 miles an hour, you feel like you're doing 110 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
It's that rawness, it's that noise. You don't have to be going quick to put a smile on your face.
No.
And actually, when the video comes out about me driving this, you don't need to listen to anything I say. You just need to look at the smile on my face, and it literally says it all. But what a pleasure. What a great car to drive.
Yeah.
So what's in the bucket list of Phil next then? What's the next car?
I don't know. It's a tricky one. I'm one of those people who sits on Auto Trader all night looking at what I might get next, seeing what the price of cars are. You know, would I fancy this? Would I fancy that? It's really, really hard. I'm not as keen on the more modern Porsches, so the 992s I'm not really massively into. Yeah. The reason I got a 991.1 is because I like the naturally aspirated engine. I just prefer the sound of it, and I just think it's nice. So I'll probably have to brand shift to another German car, maybe. Yeah. Or an Italian. It'd be German or Italian, something fast.
It's kind of difficult as well, isn't it? Because when you've had, in my view, one of the pinnacle air-cooled 911s, and again of the 991 generation car, in my opinion, one of the best out there as well. Yeah. Especially when you come from a manufacturer like Porsche, who build quality is very, very high. I think it's going to be very difficult to go into another brand. It is, because you always compare it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's some great Italian brands out there, and they're very fast, very quick, look amazing. Yeah. But do they drive like Porsche?
No. Do you know what they're going to do when you try and start them that day, and all of the other dramas that come with it?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, what a stunning car.
No, it's cool.
Well, I really appreciate, one, the loan of the vehicle, but more importantly, just taking time to spend some time on camera talking to us about your experience, because if it's like me, I'm not a natural behind the camera. So we really thank you for that. So thank you for your time today, Paul.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome. And thank you for choosing us to look after it as well, because it's been a pleasure looking after it for you in that time as well.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the chat with Paul. We're very grateful for Paul loaning his vehicle in his SuperSport. It's been a pleasure having it here. It's attracted a lot of people to look around it. We've had a lot of visitors come here and look at it. And again, the same story, the 80s icon car. What a fantastic vehicle. Keep watching our new PieCast channel. This is the first car in the channel, which I'm really privileged to have it being a SuperSport. We've got a lot of great cars coming up. Also, if you've got a car that you'd like us to feature, a Porsche on the channel, please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.